What's going on, boxing fans? I'm back here with another video here set for you guys. Going to be going over the card of Jaron Ennis versus Matise Stanionis. Just going to be talking about the main event because these are the only two fights on this card or card just in general that were really taking of note of importance. So the first fight to be able to talk about is Raymond Ford versus Thomas Matise, a step up of competition for Raymond Ford, who's jumping up a division or has recently just jumped up in a division, now in the super featherweight division after he dropped his title belt against Nick Ball in the featherweight division, which is a really great matchup between those two guys. High level competition between them both. Raymond Ford is kind of a prospect, sort of, already been a champion, but is really, not a huge name. Has been already on the other card of Jaron Ennis beforehand in his last matchup. Last time out, Ennis fought. Ford also fought in that card as well, I believe. And Raymond Ford, man, is just a tremendous boxer puncher. More of a boxer, in my opinion, but has a little pop in his hands. And going against somebody like a Thomas Matise, he just completely outclassed him on the feet, however it may be. He was way too quick in terms of his hands, his footwork, anything. He was landing a lot of shots, especially in the southpaw position. The right hooks up top was money. The jab, body work. Raymond Ford was looking electric out there. And Thomas Matise was pretty much just out there to be a heavy bag that liked it to boast every now and then because that's just his personality, I guess. But it didn't really work for me. Thomas Matise looked absolutely atrocious out there. He looked like he had no business being in the same ring as Raymond Ford, as he should, though. Raymond Ford is really pushing really hard now, jumping in the super featherweight division to be able to fight for a belt. I think the next matchup should be a title holder matchup. As of right now, the only title holders that I can be able to say that are in the super featherweight division is Emmanuel Navarrete, O'Shea Foster, Anthony Cache. There's a few belts that I think are left vacant in this division, so there's a lot of collecting for these guys to be able to possibly get a belt matchup. Mark Magsayo, the Filipino, is also a nice name as well in this division, but I think it's pretty much for the taking, and somebody like the ilk, the ability, and the skill like a Raymond Ford is for the taking. I think Raymond Ford is a tremendous fighter, tremendous boxer. I really like his ability and skills in the ring. There's not much really to be able to take away from this fight. He completely dominated Thomas Matise. Again, Matise didn't even look like he deserved to be in the same ring as Raymond Ford. Raymond Ford put a beating on that boy, and Thomas took it like a good boy. He did. He took it like a good little boy that he is. And yeah, Raymond Ford matching up against Navarrete, I think he completely outclasses him. Anthony Cache is decent, but I think he gets outboxed as well by Raymond Ford. I think Raymond Ford, especially him being so young, he's just the future for him and the potential with this guy. Even though he only has 8 KOs on his 17 wins that he has on his record, doesn't really reflect the type of power that he has. Because again, there's guys that has those type of records, and you think, oh, this guy has no pop in his hands at all. He has some type of pop to be able to stave off of you if you really want to be able to get in the nitty gritty with him. And O'Shea Foster, I think, is probably the best matchup that they can be able to make in this division. Him being not really across the street, he's with ESPN. Raymond Ford now with DAZN. They match up pretty well. They don't have the same type of issues with PBC, so they can be able to make these matches up, pretty easily compared to if he was across the street for real. But Raymond Ford, man, did what he needed to be able to do, get a nice win on his resume, get comfortable in the division again, and now looking to be able to fight for a title belt next up. And moving on to the main event, which was the return of action for Jaron Ennis versus Matise Stanionis. Ennis had his IBF title belt on the line, and Stanionis, I believe, had his WBA title belt on the line. Both of these guys undefeated, young, hungry fighters to be able to unify this welterweight division. Just made my most recent welterweight video in the boxing division recently, and I talked about both of these guys. I kind of briefly talked about the matchup, and I think this pretty much just wound up the way that I believed it to be. it's kind of strange in a sort of way where I look at Jaron Ennis and he eerily reminds me of the guy who he wanted to face up against really badly, who was in at a moment of time in the 147-pound division, that being Terrence Crawford. Both of these guys being tremendous boxer punchers, having power, being switch hitters, really comfortable being in southpaw or in orthodox, having a great defensive ability, even though I do think that Jaron Ennis is a little bit more flashy in his personality in terms of his defense. They both get caught with some shots here and there, and they both have pretty good, decent, no, I wouldn't say decent, pretty good, very good chins on them as well. So both of these guys are kind of molded out of the same type of build where you just see the ability and skill that these guys have, and you just see the potential as of right now of Jaron Ennis and his career and his trajectory kind of moving very similar the way that it was of Terrence Crawford, where Terrence Crawford, you already know what he had. Like, his ability and his skill was bar none, pound for pound, best of all time. But it was just his record and his resume that he had that was very unfavorable. He had a lot of matchups similar like to Ennis as of recent, fighting a lot of dudes from Europe, Eastern Europe that are pretty much no names, and you put him against Terrence Crawford or as of right now Jaron Ennis, and he gets wins against them. He looks really good. He gets knockouts against these dudes that are coming out of that area, and they're touted, promoted as of problems to be able to deal with, but you don't really know them as fighters. And he just deals with them. He takes care of the business, and he does what he needs to be able to do to get the victory, similar to a guy like Terrence Bud Crawford. But then, after a while, Crawford then started to get the names and matchups, even though it was later in age for both fighters, that being, wins against Amir Khan, Kell Brook, Sean Porter, Errol Spence. And he has pretty good names on his record, and the skill and the ability cannot be questioned of Terrence Crawford. And you could say the same for Jaron Ennis. Matching up a guy against, again, undefeated, Stanionis, had a bit of little injury problem, had some layoffs, but is known for that Eastern European style, similar to a Gennady Golovkin, of being a pressure fighter, having a lot of power in his shots, and just continues to move forward and is headstrong and is a stubborn type of dude. And similar to Terrence Crawford, I think Jaron Ennis kind of fights to his competition of level, where if he's up and focused and really lasered in on his matchup, he is a fucking problem to deal with. He is the real deal. You can really see all his skill set out onto display, and his full potential is really there to be able to see. But if he's matched up against a dude that is just like mid, whatever, nobody really knows him, then he kind of does what he needs to do, but it's kind of not the way that you wanted it to be done. And with Amanda Stanionis, he was up for the challenge, man. Unification bout. Again, undefeated fighter, and he just put on a spectacular performance. Best performance, in my opinion, for Jaron Ennis was absolutely in his peak, in his flow state, doing the things that he needed to be able to do to get the victory. And still, again, his chin still got checked. There was a lot of shots that still landed on him clean. He still is not able to avoid that every here and there. You swim in water, you're gonna get wet. Stanionis had some success, I would say, later in that fight, being the third, fourth, and fifth round with the jab. Had some shots that he landed with, some overhand rights, some straight rights, and some left hooks. But for the majority of the fight, it was Jaron Ennis controlling the pace and doing what he needed to be able to do to get him on Stanionis out of there. The body work was tremendous. The uppercuts in both southpaw and in orthodox, even though when he first switched over to southpaw, I did see that Stanionis had a little bit more success than what he did in orthodox, that being for Ennis. But eventually, just the work just started to be able to show. The hand speed, the footwork, the talent, the skill, the ability, everything that you want to be able to talk about. Jaron Ennis was just on another level compared to Amanda Stanionis. And he got him out of there with a no mas. Going into the 7th round, got a TKO victory, so he got another KO on his record. And hopefully now with him unificating the belts, that being IBF and WBA, you have Mario Barrios with the WBC belt. And I'm blanking out as of right now who has the WBO belt. Brian Norman Jr., which would be an absolute banger matchup, but I don't think they'll make that as of right now. Even though he's not across the street again, like I was talking about earlier, him being with ESPN and Top Rank is a matchup that they can obviously make for sure. But Jaron Ennis was kind of hesitant on his questions of whether he wanted to be undisputed or whether he wanted to be able to move up into weight. They were talking about on the commentary about they had a weight clause of rehydration for IBF of, just coming up to 10 pounds, and he didn't have to worry about that. And the performance really showed. With him rehydrating to a certain amount of weight for him in the welterweight division, he is a problem. That's probably why he was kind of, iffy about the question that he was asked. Because honestly, I do think in his mind, even though he didn't really clear out the division of the welterweight division, it was kind of in a barren era where there was not much to be able to talk about. He pushed hard for the Crawford fight, didn't get it. Spence moved up, Crawford moved up. All the other fighters that were in that era of Porter, Thurman, um, Danny Garcia, all Amir Khan, Kell Brook, they're already washed up. They already got beaten. They already got knocked out. So it was kind of like not really much to be able to say. And with everybody moving up, him wanting to be able to move up as well, test his skill and power, and also as well probably dominating in a real weight that's a lot better for him and the cut that he makes, because he looked really bad on the weight cut for 147 for this time out for Stanionis. Um, it's in the cards for him. But again, in this matchup with Stanionis, even though Stanionis had his moments here and there, it was all full go for Jaron Ennis. And this is exactly what you want to be able to see, is these type of performances from him where he's just on another level. And we want more matchups like that against, other fighters that, that can bring it to another gear and another level. And you match it up with Jaron Ennis, which honestly I think in his future potential, if he's matched up against other fighters that are really, really well renowned and have great resumes as well. We're talking about a pound for pound fighter right now. His skill and ability is there, but again, the records, the names, the resume, it's not there yet. He's still young. Maybe could move up. Maybe could be undisputed. We will see eventually from Jaron Ennis, but he took care of business tonight against a undefeated young fighter who could be a problem for a lot of other people in this welterweight division. I talked about that in my video previous of the welterweight division that I made in my channel. So yeah, like this video if you obviously like this video. Comment your opinions on Jaron Ennis and his absolutely spectacular performance on this one matched up, and Raymond Ford as well, showing out his skill set and doing what he needed to be able to do to have a dominant performance against a pretty much nobody. And subscribe, boxing fans. Subscribe, because you're here, I'm here, and we're both here for a reason. And we want to be here. Duh. So thank you guys again for watching again, and peace.